Annually, the service has to report to the board publicly on the implementation of this business plan. And to the extent that this is a goal, traffic safety, including pedestrian, bicycle behavior, and so on, the service will be reporting publicly on what exactly it has done to meet that goal. So there will be a public accounting of whether or not we are achieving the goal that we have set here.
My question was, will there be a report to the board saying what the goal is?
Well, the goal is here. The board has approved goal number 3 very specifically.
Yeah, I have another question before I go. When I go back to the human resources strategy, I noticed that the complement of officers now is 5276. And yet you're looking in 2014 to add 286 new hires. And then in 2015 to go up by having 425 new hires. So am I to understand that it is the part of the business plan to bring yourself back up to the full complement of 5,604 officers?
This is very much a discussion that's going on. It's not finished yet. The number of 56 is the current established number. And as you may know, over the last 2 years, the chief undertook an internal organizational review, of which a component was to bring in an external consultant to determine what should be the exact number, what's the right size of the uniform complement. And that discussion is not completed yet. The board has not made up its mind that 5,600 or more is the right number. This year, as part of the budget, the board has decided to undertake its own organizational review. And this issue is very much one of the issues that the board will look at as part of the organizational review. So what you have in the business plan is simply a repetition of what exists right now, but that's not the final number.
Any further questions? This was held by Councilor Thompson this week.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to thank the Chair of the Police Service Board, Dr. Mukherjee, for being here. I have a motion, and that motion simply requests the Toronto Police Service Board to provide the Executive Committee with all updated reports relating to specific measurements, indicators for the priorities, and so on, which create public trust and transparency to Toronto Police Service priorities and its business plan. It's really important, Mr. Chair, to recognize what's going on in policing. In fact, it's my view, I will say this to you, that there is a difference with respect to the board's direction and the direction by the leadership of the police service. And I think that it needs to be like this. It's not today. You've heard the chair speak to you about the CIOR, the Chief's Internal Review, which we've spent over $1 million and have found no real savings. However, we have organized this organization, which, as you heard from the questions from Councillor Shiner to the chair, which suggests that the numbers are inching upwards again. We hear that, well, we don't have enough bodies. And it is my submission to you that I have not met a chief who simply wants an organization that decreases in terms of numbers. It's empire building that I notice that tends to occur. And it isn't to suggest that issues around crime and the categories in which crime is being impacted in the city, that they're actually going up. I think we know that the national trend is that crime is going down. Everywhere across this country, I chair the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee at FCM. And we have some of the members of that committee are former police chiefs, senior police officers who are now politicians. And they now understand the element in terms of the economics of policing. It appears that many in this city don't understand that. And so we see an ebb in terms of this budget. But I can tell you this, it's not finished. And the reason why it's not finished is that because we don't have that synergy between the board and the leadership. And I say that here in front of this body of executive, that has to change. That organization must and will change. It's got to come hell or high water, because it has to change for the benefit of Torontonians. And right now, it's, in my view, it's not in the best interest. So the board, who wanted to do its due diligence.
Councillor Thompson, I do apologize for interrupting. Can I have a motion to extend until we finish the order of business?
Thank you.
All those in favor, opposed, that's carried.
So the board, who wanted to do its own review, was frustrated through the process that occurred. And so now we have to do another review. It should have only been one review. That would have helped us with respect to the organizational structure. We have a fundamental problem here with respect to the structure of policing in the city. Some will say not. But I can tell you from the point or the place that I sit, there needs to be fundamental change in this organization. And I think that what that we should be doing as an executive, and that's why I want this information to come back to us, to show us where those numbers will land. And not just to obfuscate, not just to come in and wordsmith to us here by anybody to tell us how wonderful a job that's being done. We have an important decision to make as an organization as it relates to carding. Some tells us that carding is actually going to be the salvation of policing. I don't subscribe to that. In fact, the new mayor of New York has basically just has decided not to challenge the decision that was made by the former mayor on the stop and frisk, because we don't actually have, in fact, obviously evidence that suggests that that is a solution to policing. Carding may not be stop and frisk, but it could very well be viewed as that by many who are being impacted by it. I can tell you this: we have many in the community who come forward who have been impacted by this. Many of them are young blacks in this city. So this business plan is a work in progress. There are some in policing who think that it's a final decision. And I can submit to you that it isn't a final decision because there's a lot of work to be done. I know that communications that the chair has received from some in policing suggest that it's final. And I can say publicly now, it can't be, it shouldn't be, because the work's not done. And we really need good leadership in this organization.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the mover and of the motion? Seeing none, further speakers.
Just briefly,
Councillor Sutton.
Deputy Mayor, I'm hoping that getting the report that's being asked for will help in the questions that I asked the chair as well, because it may not be to the same concern as some that my colleague was speaking about, or the way some people are treated when they're stopped. But the ongoing question that I ask is a question that people ask me all the time about who's enforcing the law and who's above the law due to the question. In particular, cyclists, and I'm not meaning to pick on them. I love riding my bike as well. But for all the good cyclists that are out there, there are the dangerous cyclists that are out there that maneuver between ongoing traffic, that don't respect the road signs, or the rules of the road, may not even know them, that jump up on the sidewalk and push pedestrians out of the way because traffic's busy, or go around between cars and make it dangerous. And there are pedestrians that way. And maybe it's Vancouver that enforces the jaywalking law a lot better than we do over here, but I've never heard of any incidents here in the city where people have received the same type of summons. And all you have to do is look at the officers that may be walking around Yonge and Dundas, and yet the dangerous behavior of both pedestrians and cyclists there, and they look at them. And I thought their job was to enforce the law. And I thought that we should know what that is. And it's not the first or second or third time that it's being brought up. And with people depending more on public transit downtown, which is more pedestrians, and cyclists downtown, there should be measurables in place to understand and fairly be able to reflect back when I ask a question of the chair, for the chair to be able to respond back, yes, you know, we have officers out there doing this. There are so many summons being out there, or these are the campaigns that are going on, and it's not happening. So I don't have any way to respond to my community and tell them that it's happening. I don't have any data that's out there, and I hope we won't have some, because there's many areas that are concerned to people that we should be able to get these measurements on and see what's being done, because I'm sure each of my colleagues here may have another area where there's a concern or something involved. They'd like to know what's happening, and they are unable to get that type of clean and simple response back to the priorities, the way they're being dealt with, and the measurables in that regard. So Very supportive of my colleague's motion.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Leo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I went to the Police Services Commission meeting last month, and, excuse me a moment. I was very impressed with what I saw. Dr. Mukherjee, I thank you for making me feel so welcome. And speaking to what Councillor Thompson has said, I walked away with some feelings mutual with what Councillor Thompson has said today. However, I read this report, and I sensed something is about to happen at the Police Commission. What I sensed is we're going to see a little more accountability that we can define, and perhaps we might even have a few tools to work with when it comes to budget, because that's what I think they're trying to do. And it will give us some measurables as to the services being offered here in the community. And I'm hopeful that my concerns with paid duty officers and cyclists, as Councillor Shiner said, can be looked for in this report. So I heartily endorse adopting what we're going to be doing in a moment. And I thank you, Dr. Mukherjee, for beginning this along with you and your board for getting something to this board here, this and council, that we can have better measurables, especially when it comes to doing the budget and budget matters and working with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further speakers? Seeing none, the recommendation is to forward a copy of this report to Toronto City Council for information. But we also have Councillor Thompson's motion as the amendment. Is that correct? And all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Before we get to that